Everybody, Steve with Tan Books coming at you with Charles Coulombe, previous guest on this to talk about his own book. But today we're talking about a person. I think she was a friend of yours, wasn't she? Or you just
She sure
she was
was. She sure was.
Joan Carroll Cruz, who Tan has probably about I don't know, what she got 9 or 10, 11 books or something like this.
Quite a few. I lost count, but she has an awful lot of them.
More than
You
one.
know, I'll say, and all the most extraordinary subjects too. Uh, Eucharistic miracles, the incorruptibles, relics, miraculous images of our Lord, miraculous images of Our Lady, miracles and wonders in the lives of the saints, lay saints, which is a big, thick book.
Mm-hmm.
But just an extraordinary collection of miraculous and bizarre events, and all written. She'd written before she started writing about this kind of thing. She'd written a novel, I think, and she very intelligently wrote about these wonders in a very matter-of-fact way. Just the facts, ma'am. And she could take something that was that's like, oh my heavens, what? And so what happened was, the blood turned to the wine turned to blood, and the bread to flesh. Scientific observation and study has shown that it is dot dot dot. And that's actually just the way to do it, because if you write about miracles in a sort of explosion of piety, in a sense, it takes away from the effectiveness and the sheer otherworldliness of the miracle being discussed. I mean, I remember one of the things that she wrote about in Eucharistic miracles was the Holy Host of Hasselt. And it so happened that I was near Hasselt in Belgium, so I was able to go see it. And I venerated it. I'm looking at it. And it was a host, sort of slightly off-white with a brown stain on it because it had bled. And I'm looking at this thing, and it suddenly hit me. It was over 500 years old, and it was in a non-airtight container. It had no business existing. It simply should not have been there. And yet there it was looking at me.
Right.
Just saying, okay, what are you going to do about it, pal? You're so smart. It's the same with the Tilma of Guadalupe and a lot of these relics. A lot of them have something wrong with them. Wrong in the sense that they defy what we think we know about things in terms of existing. And we simply have to swallow our pride, whether it be in our science or our knowledge, whatever it is we think we know, and accept the fact that there those things are staring back at us.
Like the incorruptibles, you got Pio in them just laying in a case. But don't they try? Isn't it Lenin that they try to every so often they put him in some kind of chemical or whatever to try to keep him going? But in our guys, they just lay there.
They just lay there. Hi. That's it. Hi. Now, mind you, I have seen not incorrupt but mummified bodies in Dublin. For a long time, it was open to the public, but then a schmuck cut off the hand. They got it back, but there was a medieval knight lying in a coffin in the crypt of St. Mickens in Dublin. He died in the 1200s. They would have you shake his hand. And I mean, he'd been dead for a long time, but because of the way the minerals and so forth in that crypt are, they have the property of mummifying bodies. But the incorruptibles are not mummified. So it's it's a collection of interesting and strange things. But the importance of them, and there is an importance, is that they remind us, especially in times like this when everyone seems crazy, that God is still in charge, that the miraculous occurs, and that even if your bishop is, I mean, take the worst possible case you want, He's been hiding pedophiles, and he's bankrupting the diocese, and he's insisting on communion on the hand, and anything you want. That's nice, except the faith is true, despite his best efforts. And that's important because it's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to get discouraged with the way things are in the church. It's easy to get discouraged with the way things are in the state. But what these miracles tell us is that it only looks bad. Nothing has really changed. You're simply given the historical issues you have to live through, the way your fathers had to live through other ones. You're not living through either World War. You're not living through the Depression. You're not living through the Black Plague. You're not living through the pornocracy, 100 years of evil popes. You're not living through that. You're living through something else. You're living through this. You're not living through the Great Schism with 3 popes. You're not living through the barbarian invasions. You're not living through the Vikings and Magyars raiding. You're not living through the collapse of the Middle East before the Muslim invaders. You're not living through that. You're living through this. But just as the faith was true through all of those times, it's true now. And these miracles that Joan left us, her great life's work, should be very powerful reminders of this. And I have to say, too, another thing about Joan that was interesting to me. I mean, before I had met her, I'd read a lot of her books. She hadn't written them all yet, but she wrote the biggest part. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what she would be like. And you couldn't really tell from her writing. I figured maybe she'd be sort of an austere, scholarly kind of lady, sort of a secular nun or something. No, she was not. She was a very happy, funny New Orleans housewife. And, I mean, she was just a real joy to know, a real pleasure. Very, very funny.
Did you ever ask her why she put these together?
Yeah. And it was very simple. She was fascinated by it. I mean, once you start going into these things, they are extraordinary. And again, feeling the touch of heaven so close that it almost burns an impression. Yeah. So that's what she gave her life to doing until she died. And Tan Books had the great privilege of being her major publisher.
These are something you could put on your coffee table for guests to come over. They can just pick up and look through, because I've heard quite a few of sources for evangelization, conversions come out of them just by, reading the Incorruptibles, for example.
Oh, yeah. I mean, honestly, back in the day, when I knew her, a lot of what I did, most probably of what I did, was what you might call controversial stuff, dealing with the issues of the day. Mm-hmm. But I always said then, I mean, now I've written stuff that's a bit more along the lines of perennial interest. But that's how things were back then. And I always told people, they're going to be reading Joan Carroll Cruz's stuff long after I'm forgotten. Because the issues that I'm writing about will be meaningless in 20 years. Mm-hmm. But her stuff, always.
Yeah. And in even the lay saints, we were talking about miraculous stuff. The lay saints can be for, I mean, you mentioned the married ones. I mean, everybody, if you're not a cleric, these are people you can look up to if you're a mom, husband, father.
Well, son. See, and those are miracles in and of themselves, mm-hmm. because we forget. Well, I mean, probably you don't, but it's often forgotten how hard it is for married people and parents to pursue sanctity, because you've got so many other things going on, mm-hmm. And you've got, let's be brutally frank, your husband or wife's problems and your own as people. This will shock you, but no one's perfect. I know. I'm sorry I had to break it to you this way. I'm sorry I had to find out like this. My apologies. But, some couples are very fortunate. They grow together. They become ever more tight with each other, like a shoe and a sock. And very often couples like that don't really outlast each other very long. You know, yeah, after Dad died, 6 weeks, Mom was gone. It happens. I mean, I knew a couple who were like that. We always saw them as Jim and Joan. I mean, you really couldn't imagine the one without the other. Now, most couples don't attain that, but some do. And sure enough, when Jim died, there was really nothing wrong with Joan, but she followed 6 weeks later, and it was not a shock. So,
what was
read all that Joan Carroll Cruz stuff, ladies and gentlemen.
What was the series? I mean, just probably like picking your favorite kid if you had one. What was your favorite book in the series?
Eucharistic Miracles, probably. I mean, they were all good, but Eucharistic Miracles was. I mean, it speaks to the very heart of our faith. I know that a lot of clerics, especially bishops, don't really believe that anymore, as evidenced by our recent excitements and adventures. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't make it any the less true.
Yeah, it's a thick book, too. It's not like it's 5-10 pages. It's a couple hundred in there.
No. And what's amazing is that there have been several, I think 4 or 5, that have occurred since she died. And I know she would have loved to have added them to a later edition.
And just for scoring at home, we got, I don't know, a couple million miraculous events here from that Joan's putting on, and the rest of religions is a grand tally of 0.
Well, but that doesn't necessarily mean. Well, maybe. No, hold on. That never mind.
What we're trying to get to is you're in the true and only religion.
There's that. And it's important to remember it. I will say that when I was writing my Grail book for Tan, I was interested in finding out whether Eastern Christianity, Catholic or Orthodox, had a tradition of Eucharistic miracles. Mm-hmm. And I made a big mistake. You know, Orthodoxy has been flooded with a ton of Western converts who claim to speak for Orthodoxy. Now, I have been warned by ethnic Orthodox friends that you got to take what they say with a little bit of salt. Nevertheless, in looking for this stuff, Eucharistic Miracles, Eastern Orthodox, I came across a couple of different articles by, people like the Reverend Archimandrite Bob Smith or whatever, saying that Eucharistic miracles are a papist corruption, true Orthodoxy doesn't need them, blah, 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 blah. Well, I didn't have time, so I just set the whole issue aside. Let the East take care of itself, and I went on. But of course, as soon as the book came out, and I talked to an actual Russian Orthodox priest who is not of Western descent, he said, "I don't know what you're talking about. Of course we do." And he pointed out that their Euchologion has that is to say, their missal has a procedure for dealing with the Blessed Sacrament should the bread turn to flesh or the wine to blood. Mm-hmm. And it's very dissimilar to what we do. Mm-hmm. So I should have thought that I should have pushed deeper.
I asked a friend of mine that's a big Orthodox. He's not in it. He studied it a lot. Eric Ibarra.
Damn.
And he mentioned that the ones he has seen that are proved, he goes, the funny thing was they were before the schism. Because they have them in their history, but he said they were before the schism. So, take that.
Gosh, I don't know. I wasn't there.
Yeah. No.
But I still, it's good to know. So I definitely I cannot recommend her book strong enough.
What about Joan? And I'm assuming she was a cradle Catholic from the early on until she died. When did she die?
5 or 10 years ago.
Okay, so rather recently. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever had anybody come up to you and speak about Joan and in the way that she brought her books out to people, or conversion stories. You hear like with my channel, they'll send letters and emails or whatever. Did she get the recognition from others that other people you see today that are out there on the web?
Well, she got letters from people, yeah, thanking her for their conversion, and her contribution to it. And I knew how she felt, because when you get letters like that, or even emails now, it's the greatest thing in the world. There's nothing quite like it. Writing has a lot of drawbacks. It's lonely. Writers tend to be very lazy, so forcing yourself to get anything done is always a pain. And because you're a Catholic writer, you really cannot expect the fame and fortune that regular writers might try to go after. But when someone says something you wrote really contributed to their conversion, all the problems are, you forget it. That's great. Everything else is unimportant.
I only ask because some people look at it, don't even know who she is, or that they have it. It's dusty and has been opened, and probably right next to their Bible because they haven't opened that either. But
open up that Joan Carroll Cruz book, ladies and gentlemen. It's there for a reason. Open it up.
Besides the pages, all her books, what's your final thoughts on Joan?
Well, the pages might go flying out in some of the older versions, so be careful. But no, I would say that we need more work along the lines that she pioneered. I mean, what you might call a scientific study of the miraculous in the church. Not for the standpoint of trying to disprove it or something, but to catalog it and to discern the patterns in these things, because there are patterns. Say none of this happens by sheer accident. God allows and or does these things for a purpose. The problem is we don't really know what it is. But what appears to be random to us, why does the Blessed Sacrament turn to flesh and blood there, but not all these places? Only God knows. But precisely because it comes from Him, we can be utterly confident that it's for our own good.
Yeah, thanks to her Mary book. There's a lot on the sermon videos I put together. I used a lot of those photos that she found in the book in the videos, where I printed them out. I got them hanging around the room or in the house, and that's another thing, ladies and gentlemen. Get the Marian book, and you'll see all these Marian titles you've never heard of before, and they're beautiful icons.
Yeah, she knew what she was doing. So get those Joan Carroll Cruz books, ladies and gentlemen. Give them out to friends, especially non-Catholic friends. Make sure they're sitting on your coffee table. And give them to high school kids.
Yes. I do have a friend of mine that told me that it was young college or graduating high school kids, and they were so interested in the Incorruptibles book that they put away the video games to look at the Incorruptibles book.
See? And that's the beginning of their reconversion. So don't sell Joan short. Buy them Joan Carroll Cruz books for graduation presents, for sickbed presents. You've got a friend who's in the hospital with COVID-19. Give him Joan Carroll Cruz.
It worked for some guy named Ignacio. We call him Ignatius. Inigo, yes.
Inigo Loyola. So that is my appeal, ladies and gentlemen.
And anybody that's a Session Fidelium fan, 15% off if you type in the code SF15 for all books at tanbooks.com. But obviously we're talking about Joan, so go get Joan. Charles is on. Charles got a new book. We did a thing with him on Blessed Carl. There you go. They're gracious enough to give us 15% off for all the listeners, so take advantage of it. Study up. Become more deeper into faith. Well, Charles, appreciate it, man.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Ciao.